Greetings, Guardians. This is Olympus Alliance. There is one request we've been seeing more and more lately. Drayne Teams. Not simply one strong Drayne lineup. Not a theoretical composition that looks good on paper. But teams that can actually be used in offense, defense, and different situations depending on what you're facing. And with Relics now becoming such an important part of account progression, this conversation matters even more. But Guardians. Relics alone don't build great teams. Stats don't build great teams. 5 individually powerful heroes don't necessarily build a great team. What matters is synergy. How one hero creates an opportunity for another. How one debuff makes the next attack stronger. How control buys time for your damage dealers. How protection allows a dangerous hero to stay alive long enough to completely change a battle. And Drayne is one of those heroes where the heroes around him can completely change what the team becomes. So today we're bringing you 5 Drayne teams that we've been using, seeing, and working with, including compositions for both offense and defense. And we're starting with one that I've personally been using a lot lately. Electra, Drayne, Guus, Crow, and Aidan. This team has become one of my favorites because there isn't just one threat. There are several layers working together. Electra gives you a strong frontline presence and helps hold the battle together while everything behind her starts developing. Then we have the core that we've talked about before. Drayne, Guus, and Crow. And this trio is incredibly interesting against magic-based compositions. Crow brings silence into the battle, which is already extremely disruptive against teams that depend on their skills and magical pressure. Guus brings his own contribution to the fight while benefiting from having the battle controlled around him. And Drayne adds another layer of disruption through his debuffs and stat reduction. That's the beauty of this core. You're not relying on one button to completely shut down the enemy. You're creating multiple problems at the same time. Then Aidan completes the composition by giving it the sustain it needs. And that matters because this isn't necessarily a team that needs to destroy everything in the opening seconds. The longer these heroes are allowed to operate, the more uncomfortable the battle becomes for the opponent. Crow is disrupting. Drayne is weakening. Guus is applying pressure. Electra is holding the front. Aidan is helping the team survive. Everything has a purpose. And that's why I've been using this composition so much lately. Team number 2 changes the idea completely. Drayne, Alvanna, Crow, Folio, and Miu. Now we're moving away from the more traditional frontline structure and into a composition built around disruption, protection, and making the opponent's battle increasingly difficult to execute. Alvanna is extremely important here because of the protection and support he brings to the composition. That creates more time for the rest of the team. And time is exactly what Drayne wants. Because Drayne's value isn't only about immediate damage. The debuffs and stat manipulation become increasingly relevant when the enemy is forced to remain in the battle. Then we add Crow. Once again, Crow gives us silence and another source of disruption. And now add Folio and Miu. This is where the composition becomes incredibly annoying. Folio adds another layer of control and pressure, while Miu contributes to making enemy attacks less reliable. So think about what the opponent is dealing with. Drayne is weakening them. Crow can interfere with their ability to execute skills. Folio is creating additional disruption. Miu is making their offensive execution more difficult. And Alvanna is helping your side remain alive while all of that happens. This is exactly the type of defensive composition I like. Not because I can promise you that nobody will beat it. That's impossible. But because it creates questions. And on defense? The more questions you force the attacker to answer, the better. Now let's move to team number 3. Drayne, Werner, Tempus, Iris, and Dorian. This one is dangerous. And immediately you should notice something. There isn't a traditional tank. That's intentional. Because this composition is about creating enough pressure, sustain, and disruption that the enemy struggles to take advantage of that absence. Werner gives the composition another strong source of pressure. Tempus helps control the pace of the battle. Drayne continues weakening the enemy. And then we have Iris. This is where things become nasty. Iris loves situations where the opposing team is already being compromised. Drayne is creating debuffs. Tempus is interfering with the enemy's rhythm. And Iris now has the environment she needs to become extremely dangerous. Then Dorian ties everything together with sustain. And Dorian's value has become even more interesting recently. After his rework and relics, we've already talked about how impressive he can be in the correct compositions. Here, he's not simply occupying the 5th position. He's helping an aggressive lineup survive long enough to finish what it starts. This is one of those teams where the enemy can suddenly realize that everything is going wrong at once. Their tempo is disrupted. Their heroes are weakened. Iris is applying enormous pressure. And Dorian is helping keep your damage engine running. Team number 4. Electra, Drayne, Phobos, Dorian, and Kendall. And this is another composition with a completely different personality. Electra returns to give us that frontline presence. Behind her, Drayne begins doing his work. Then comes Phobos. Phobos gives this team a very important control element, particularly when you're dealing with dangerous magical threats. That's important because it creates windows. Every moment an important enemy hero isn't doing what they're supposed to do. Drayne gets more time. Dorian gets more time. Kendall gets more time. And the entire composition gets another opportunity to establish control of the battle. Dorian once again provides that sustain element, while Kendall adds another layer to the composition rather than forcing everything through a single damage source. That's something I really like about these Drayne teams. We're not building 5 copies of the same idea. We're using Drayne as part of different structures. Sometimes he's helping a team attack magic. Sometimes he's part of a debuff heavy defensive composition. Sometimes he's enabling aggressive damage. And sometimes he's supporting a more controlled battle. And finally, we have the classic. Drayne, Dante, Tempus, Iris, and Octavia. This one is much more commonly used on offense. And there's a reason for that. The synergy here is beautiful. Dante and Octavia already form one of the most recognizable dodge combinations in the game. Dante can turn successful dodges into additional pressure, while Octavia makes that entire dodge engine considerably more dangerous. Then Tempus enters and starts affecting the speed and rhythm of the fight. Drayne adds his debuffs and stat reduction. And Iris. Iris absolutely loves what is happening around her. Because now the opponent isn't simply fighting Dante. They're dealing with dodge. They're dealing with Octavia. They're dealing with Tempus. They're dealing with Drayne's debuffs. And they're dealing with Iris waiting to punish a team that's already being compromised. This is why the composition remains so effective offensively. It has a very clear identity. Dante and Octavia create the engine. Tempus manipulates the tempo. Drayne weakens the opposition. Iris converts that increasingly compromised battlefield into killing pressure. That's synergy. And that's really the message I want Guardians to take from this video. Don't look at these 5 teams and think, which one is the best? That's not the right question. Ask instead, which Drayne team is best for what I'm facing? Because offense and defense are different. The enemy composition matters. Your relics matter. Your hero development matters. And the purpose of the team matters. The first composition with Electra, Drayne, Guus, Crow, and Aidan has become one of our favorite options, especially when we want that layered disruption against magic. Drayne, Alvana, Crow, Folio, and Mew creates a completely different kind of problem and can be extremely uncomfortable to attack. Drayne, Verna, Tempus, Iris, and Dorian gives you an aggressive composition where pressure and sustain work together without a traditional tank. Electra, Drayne, Phobos, Dorian, and Kendall gives us another controlled approach with multiple layers of utility. And the classic Drayne, Dante, Tempus, Iris, and Octavia remains an excellent offensive weapon when the matchup allows it. 5 teams. 5 different identities. One hero connecting all of them. Drayne. And that's what a strong hero should give you. Not one lineup you're forced to copy forever, but options. Guardians, tell us below which of these 5 Drayne teams you're already using, and more importantly, which one you want us to take deeper into testing and show you in real battles. Because sometimes the strongest team isn't the one with the biggest numbers. It's the one where 5 heroes look like they were designed to fight together. Until next time, choose the matchup, build the synergy, and make every hero earn their place on the battlefield. Salute and friendship.